It was already midnight by the time Natalia Dawson had finally got to the hotel. At a time like this, it was not quite safe for anyone working in the adult product business to make deliveries in person. Not to mention for a girl like her, young and gorgeous. But then again, what could she do? Life was never easy, and she had got to pay for her own life. More importantly, Sean would return to the country in just a few days. They had been together for 6 years, but most of the time they lived in different cities. Sean had got business to take care of abroad, and definitely she could not just hold him back. Fortunately, in the past 6 years, their relationship had been just great. After work, she also ran her own little business. It would be his birthday in a few days, and she had prepared a surprise for him. Come to think of it, she curled her lips silently, and her mouth split into a light smile, but her delicate face was covered by a mask, and people around her could only see a pair of deep and calm eyes which gave off a hint of cool aloofness. She pulled the brim of her black hat down a little more before she made her way into the hotel with the delivery box, entered the elevator. The Reka Hotel was a famous money-squandering establishment in the city of Julio. Normally, only the wealthiest figures of the city would come here to kill their time. The grand hall was furnished lavishly as expected, and even the elevators were all decorated with ornaments of gold and silver, making them glitter everywhere under the lights. Standing there, she could not help but think she did not belong here. With that being said, Natalia just held her delivery box and did not let her eyes wander a bit. Her beautiful face was covered by a mask, revealing only a pair of deep and calm eyes, which gave off a hint of cold aloofness. The elevator stopped on the 22nd floor with a ding. She walked out, quickly found room 2202, and rang the doorbell. Even before the door opened, there were already fevered moans of a man and woman sounding from inside. "Sean, stop! It seems our stuff has arrived. Wait, I'll get it." Natalia's mouth could not help but curl as she stood outside the door. Seems they have enjoyed themselves so much even without their little toy. So eager! The door quickly opened, and a freshly showered man wearing a bathrobe appeared. Natalia did not look at him and simply handed the box over. $143. Cash? The person opposite her did not move. 2 seconds later, a hesitant voice sounded, "Natalia?" Natalia was slightly startled and raised her head. Her expression went cold instantly. The man in front of her, wearing only a white bathrobe, water dripping from his short hair, was exactly the Sean Miller she had loved for 6 years. The man standing by the door was tall, with short and damp hair. He wore only a white bathrobe, and under the glow of the warm yellow light, his handsome face was filled with surprise, dismay, and a hint of panic. Natalia's face instantly went cold. "Sean, who is it?" "Nothing, just the delivery man." In a panic, Sean Miller spoke out hastily before Natalia could make a sound. He quickly took out a wad of bills from his wallet and stuffed them into her hand before snatching the box from her. The door slammed shut with a bang. Natalia stood there, her fingertips trembling slightly. Her face was pale. The next moment, she suddenly sneered. She looked at the stack of notes in her hand as if she had heard an amazing joke and found how ignorant and stupid she had been. When the sounds of lovemaking started inside, she took a deep breath and forced back the sourness in her eyes. Then she turned around and produced her phone from the pocket as she headed for the elevator. "Hello, is this Julio Police Department? I found someone taking drugs, and there is also a prostitute with him. They are in the Reka Hotel. The room number is—" 20 minutes later, a police car parked in front of the Reka Hotel along with several media reporters carrying cameras. As the people in the hotel were escorted out, the reporters rushed forward. "Mr. Miller, someone reported that you were taking drugs and hiring prostitutes in this hotel. Is this true?" "Mr. Miller? As the heir of Miller Group, do you think it's proper for you to do this?" "Mr. Miller, who is the woman with you? There are rumors that she's a popular actress from the entertainment industry. Is that true?" "Mr. Miller." Sean was so surrounded by reporters that not even the police could stop them. After a while, he could no longer bear it and roared with rage, "Get the fuck out of my eyes!" The reporters were startled but backed away as demanded. Sean looked past the crowd and stared straight at Natalia. His eyes were full of hatred and ruthlessness. "Is this what you want?" Natalia smiled coldly as a hint of mockery flashed across her eyes. You just won't get me whatever you do." Natalia suddenly walked forward and raised her hand in front of all the reporters and police. Slap! With a stinging slap to the side of his face, Sean's head was snapped to the side. The surroundings suddenly grew silent. A policeman opened his mouth. "Ma'am!" "Sorry, my hand slipped." She smiled faintly and rubbed her wrist. Her voice was clear and cold as she looked at Sean with resentment. "Do you think I'd care about a piece of scrap paper that fell into the toilet? You can think of that slap as interest. I'll collect the remaining principal within the next 3 days." Sean's eyes flashed with panic. What principal?" Natalia raised her eyebrows. "Do you really want me to remind you?" Sean's face immediately went white. She smiled coolly, her face full of ridicule and contempt. When the police saw that they had nothing more to say, he waved his hand and escorted the two into the car. Now that they had been taken away, the journalists had no reason to stay any longer. They also began to leave. The hotel entrance, that was originally swarmed with people, suddenly became empty. Natalia stood there for a short while and waited until she felt better, and she just left. Unexpectedly, as soon as she turned her head, her sight was met with a pair of deep and searching eyes. They belonged to a young man in a dark suit. He had a tall and straight figure, and neat and short hair. His eyes were as deep as a bottomless sea. Under the dim light of the
娜塔莉亚
night,
的脸
a
瞬间
cool
变冷。
and noble
肖恩，
aloofness
谁呀？
could be
没事，
sensed from his
只是送货
delicate
的。
features,
肖恩·米
making
勒
a
惊慌
sharp
失措地赶在娜
contrast
塔
from
莉
the
亚开
corrupt
口前，匆忙
environment
说道
around him. Natalia's heart shook. In the back of her mind, she thought the man looked somewhat familiar. However, when she looked back at him again, her gaze secretly trailed to the secretary behind him, as well as the silver Porsche parked beside them. Then she felt that there was no way she knew such a big shot. She did not think much, but directly turned to leave. When the petite figure blended into the traffic, Archie McCarthy looked away and asked softly, "Who was that just now?" Behind him, Brian Simpson quickly
喂，
replied,
是狐狸奥警
"Mr.
局吗？
McCarthy,
我发
do
现
you
有
mean the
人在吸
person who
毒，
was
还
taken
有一个
away
妓
by
女
the
和他
police
在一起。
earlier? He seems to be the son of the owner of Miller Corporation. He just returned from abroad a few days ago." Archie frowned slightly. "I'm talking about the girl." "Pardon?" Brian was slightly confused. "What girl?" Noting that Archie's gloomy expression, Brian immediately understood. "My apologies, Mr. McCarthy. I'll check right away." "No need." Archie interrupted him. He thought deeply for a few seconds and suddenly remembered something. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes, and he once again looked in the direction in which the girl had left. His lips hooked up in a smile. So it was her. Interesting woman. He then strode towards the elevator, looking forward to meeting with her again in his heart. Then he finally walked inside.